Well, hello folks, this is Fat Guy Flies RC coming to you from the Fat Guy Flies RC studio. Alright, now as you see, obviously this is the Hobbyzone Aeroscot. Probably one of the best, if not the best, beginner planes that is available in today's RC world as far as RC fixed-wing aircraft planes. Now, it's absolutely legendary. It's an innovative, it's not necessarily an innovative design with a pusher prop type of aircraft, but in that sense, because it's a pusher prop, there's less chance for a beginner to get cut with a prop, the less chance for the prop to get damaged. It's a little easier for you to fly, and it just makes for just a good flying solid platform. So just a good combination. It's got big robust tires. It's got a good power to weight ratio as far as the weight to power thrust ratio. Very big forgiving buttery wing to make, very slow aircraft. Lots of good time, a lot of good characteristics make it very ideal for a beginner. And now this particular Aeroscot is the ready to fly basic in that it comes with a transmitter and the airplane and everything. So you still have to provide a battery and a charger in order to get it in the air. Now, I will not be using the transmitter. I will be setting this up on my iX-14. But for right now, we will be unboxing and assembling the Hobbyzone Aeroscot. So let's get into it. I have not opened it up. I've only taken it out of the cardboard shipping box, so hopefully everything, I mean, there's nothing, no damage to the box, so hopefully shouldn't be anything wrong with it. Now, I will fly this plane, show you the different beginner levels, and we'll go through it. And you'll say, well, you have many Aeroscots. Yeah, I've had several Aeroscots. But I actually have other plans for this. But I do want to take it to the field as it is, as stock, show it in its 3 different levels, that show it in what be beginner level and self-leveling and the different aspects that this airplane can provide as it is, as we'll set it up. So let's take it out and get to it. And I'm very pleased to see that it comes with tools, which is awesome. Have your manual. It's not folded there, as you can see. Everything's packed to where you could drop it off the back of a truck. Okay, this one does come with a DXS transmitter. Let's see what kind of batteries this thing takes. I may just go ahead and bite the bullet and do all this as you see it. And I think I will do that. I'll just change my mind. We will set it up on this and we'll present it just like a beginner would do if he was to buy it. You'll need 4 AA batteries. So I'll have to figure out if I've got those. Hopefully I do. All right. Now we have a knife. And it's, looky there. It comes with 4 AA batteries for the transmitter. That also means that more than likely it is already bound to the transmitter. In this, you'll get a Phillips head screwdriver, which you'll need, and to assemble everything. The wing bolts and a couple of adjustment Allen wrenches, a bind plug, and some Velcro. And you're thinking, well, Fat Guy, you fly jets and other far more complicated airplanes. Why are you doing this? Well, my eventual plan with this is to take out the motor and slap a 64mm EDF kit using a KN additive mod. But I also don't want to waste the opportunity to introduce the Aeroscot, even though it's not new. I want to introduce it as it is. This is 1/2 of your vertical stabilizer, otherwise known as elevator. Okay. And I don't know if I've ever built an Aeroscot or assembled one. We're not building. To me, building involves measurement, gluing, setting, drying. That's more building. This is more of an assembly. Okay, the other half of the horizontal stabilizer. Okay. Always when you're unboxing these planes, keep up with your debris. always check little nooks and crannies, because these companies have a great habit of wanting to hide little things. They're usually solid white down to a solid white coffin. The other thing is, see this kind of foam, this I guess it's EPO foam. It's very firm and this makes great plane stands. When you got your fuselage sitting on a table or something, this makes a great impromptu plane stand. I keep pieces of it all the time. Okay. Got more tape here. People went nuts with the tape. This is the nose gear. Okay. Very nice, robust wheel. And you're saying, well, come on now, fat guy. The Aeroscot is nothing new. It's been around forever. Yeah, it has. And it still sells like hotcakes. And that should tell you something, because it's just a good design. Now, this square small wing spar, this is made of carbon fiber. It's square. This is what you'll be putting in your horizontal stabilizer or your elevators. Okay. This square wing spar is what you're for your main wing. Okay. All right. We got 1/2 of our landing gear. Okay. And then we got the other half of our landing gear. And these are simple pop-in design, very rugged, very forgiving, aluminum. I guess it's aluminum. Yeah, I guess aluminum. Very robust landing gear. All right. Looks like next thing we can take out is one of the wings. Okay. If you look, you pull that wing out there and you see that there's a square there. Well, you know, FBI calls that a clue. Okay, that's where that goes. And that's your servo lead, when the servo is the wire that controls this servo. And the servo is what moves this control surface. In this case, it would be your right aileron. Okay, and with this wing here, same thing. This is your right wing, and this lead controls the servo with a little motor that moves your right aileron up and down. That should be your left aileron, actually. All right. And I'm not trying to be speaking in simplistic terms. I'm talking this way for the new pilot who, you know, has heard the term servo, heard the term ESC, and has no idea what we're talking about. So that's why I'm speaking in this manner. Not to be condescending or anything, but if you don't, I mean, we all started somewhere, and if you don't know what those terms mean, then, you know, people start throwing those terms at you. They're like, what the heck are you talking about? Alrighty. Now, again, keep an eye, look in all your little nooks and crannies, make sure you've got everything out of there. Okay. And I'm going to take that piece of that EPO foam, I'm going to set it right there, and we're going to go over our fuselage. Okay. Now, here you have, this is like an interrupter, capacitor type thing. It's heavy, and this helps keep the signal strength for the ailerons consistent, from what I understand, and there's no overcharge or no over signal or whatever, and helps the electronics work better. That's just the way I've been told. Okay. Up in here, you have wires that are coming up here. One controls the ESC, which is, you see these wires here, they go down to an ESC. Okay. And the ESC, think of it as the carburetor for your car. When you press on the gas, there's something that regulates how much gas goes into the engine to make it go faster or slower, depending on your pedal. Well, same thing with an ESC. It's electronic speed control. Okay. And you give more throttle, well, the motor's going to go faster. If you give less throttle, the motor's going to go slower. Well, something has to regulate that and control that based upon your input, and that is what an ESC does. Okay? Electronic speed control, as the name suggests. This is your receiver. Okay? And they're called receivers for a reason. They receive the signal that your radio or transmitter sends out. So I mean, thanks. This is a we call them radios, okay? But in essence, they're a transmitter. They send signals to the receiver, and that receiver interprets those signals in the control of the plane based upon the signals you're sending to the aircraft. And that's how that is. This is our battery hatch, okay? And then here is where we put our fuel. In this case, it's an electric airplane, so we're going to, it's electric, so it runs on a battery, runs on a lithium-ion battery, okay? What I'll be using to control this airplane for the first time is a 3S, in other words, 3-cell, rechargeable battery, okay? And it's not that I intended to do some beginner series, but it's important that someone take the time to explain this to you. 3 cells means, when you see the term 3S, you'll say, what's a 3S battery, a 4S battery, a 6S battery? What that is there's 3 large cells. They're all taped together inside of this unit, okay? And then it's all wired to one cable that sends that power out, that operates the ESC, it operates the airplane, and makes the thing go. And then the capacity of it, how much battery life it holds, you'll hear the term 1300 mAh or 1400 milliamp. Okay, those means that's how much capacity this battery has. In this case, it has 2200 capacity. Okay, and so you just kind of have to trust me that that's a good size battery for this small of a plane. You could run a 1300 milliamp in this and get 3 or 4 minutes of flying. With a 2200, we're going to probably get 5 or 6 minutes of flying or more with this one, or even more. And then the 30, you hear those terms, discharge or C, it's how quickly the power goes out of the battery into here. So a higher DC rating is going to discharge quicker. Okay, doesn't necessarily mean you want that. If I had a high-powered jet, I'd want my DC rating to be higher because I need more power quicker. That also means that my battery is going to get drained quicker. So therefore, my flight time is going to be less. So you don't always want a high DC for depends on the plane. This plane, a 30C, is perfect for this. I'm going to get this charging while we're putting this on. All right, here is what we call a bind plug. Now, in this case, we don't need the bind plug because this particular receiver has a bind button on top. And you say, well, bind button. Well, remember we talked about the transmitter talking to the receiver, right? Well, right now, they don't know each other, okay? So I'm assuming they don't know each other. So we're going to have to bind them. In other words, I'm going to put this receiver into a mode that will mate electronically through radio frequency, 2.6 gigahertz radio frequency, to this, and they become locked into each other. That way, only this transmitter will only talk to this receiver for right now. Now, there are transmitters that will talk to multiple receivers, like my IX-14, I can control 250 planes. And no, that's not a goal, but my wife thinks it is. And maybe it is. But for this one is only going to talk to this airplane, this receiver. Okay? But once they're bound, locked together, mated together, think of it that way, then this transmitter will control this receiver, and the receiver is what controls the plane. And it all happens instantly. All right, let's go ahead and get the plane together, and we'll take a break. Actually, we're going to pause for just a minute while I put that battery on charge, and that way by the time we get it built, it should be charged enough to where we can start setting her up electronically. Hold on just right there. All righty, got the battery charging over there. Let's go ahead and start putting this plane together. Now, I don't want to have to keep stooping, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this landing gear put on first. And that way, I don't have to deal with that. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my airplane over, and look what I've got here. I've got a receiving port here, and I've got these funny looking holes here. But look, on the side, I've got these slots. Well, when I look at the landing gear, Look at that. Look how that just happens to fit right in there. So let's just slide that on in there. It locks in place. And if I look through that hole, I could take a pointy something and press a button, and that will slide right back out again. In fact, let me just go ahead and show you. I'll just press upon that button, and look at that. It slides right back out. So if I had to break this down for storage, I could. All right. Now that's on there. Now, here we have there's a screw right there. Okay, you can see there's a screw head right there. All right, now, in that kit of screws, or that little kit, there was a couple of Allen wrenches. Let's go ahead and get those out. Good thing this is a workshop table because I cut into it all the time. Okay. Oh, come on. All right, got that Allen wrench. There, okay. I'll be willing to bet that it's going to be the exact one that fits in that nut right there. Look at that. Perfect. Fits in there perfectly. All right. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit because if you look in there, you'll see the end of that black screw kind of hanging out in there? Let me loosen that up a little bit, and it should disappear. Just don't pull that screw all the way out. You see where I got it out some now? Okay. Look on the side of that shaft. See that flat spot? Okay. Well, you can put 2 and 2 together there. Okay. I'll let that drop down in there. Actually, I don't have it out enough because it's getting caught. Just don't pull the screw out all the way because you don't want to lose it. All right, drop that down in there. And even though it's moving, that screw should find that flat spot in the shaft of that wheel and straighten it right out, and it'll tighten up into that flat spot. Okay. If I can get this to line up. See how it started turning that wheel? All right. Nice, solid. Okay. Don't try not to do that. You heard that motor? That sound? I was starting to turn that servo. Don't try not to do that too much. All right. So now we got the landing gear. It's hard on the servo. Got that installed. Okay. Start to look like an airplane. Go ahead and put that so it's out of the way. Okay, that's just held on, the battery cover just held on electronically, or magnetically. Let's go ahead and look at our tail feathers here. Sometimes call it empennage. All right, remember I said you had this wing spar? Well, there's a little square point right there, okay? We're going to slide the square, and it's square for a reason, because this is what we call a full floating stab. In other words, the whole stabilizer or elevator all moves in one piece, and it's all controlled on this square-shaped spar that goes through this square-shaped opening. Well, and you're going to want to put, the decal side up towards the top of the airplane. It'll fit right through here. Got to put it in the right spot. It might be a little tight at first, but that's okay. I will say it. If you watch any of my videos, you'll hear me say, tight-fitting parts are happy parts. There we go. Okay. And at the end of these wing spars, they have stopping points where you can't push your wing spar out the other end. Okay, we're going to slide this on this side. And this is on tight enough where this is all that's needed to keep that elevator in place. We now have an elevator. The whole tail feathers are now, because the rudder is already set up for us. All right. Now, let's put our wing together. Very simple. Okay, you want to take this big square wing spar. Okay, slide in there. I felt that stopping point. Now this is important. When you put this together, see, look look how that is and how that is. Those two pieces are going to fit together. And also make sure that these wires, these servo leads, are hanging down because you're going to have to access them from the bottom side of the wing. Fish that together, okay? Make sure those two pieces of the puzzle line up together, just like that. Voila. Now look what you've got here hanging down here. They've even got a little hole there dug out for them. You now have a completed wing. Okay, remember this funny thing here that was hanging out? All right. When you're going to have to hook these two ends to those two dangling wires. Now this is a lesson I want you to pay attention to when connecting servo leads. In other words, you're taking the end of this servo lead, the end of this servo lead, in this case the aileron servo leads to where they connect to the receiver, and you're going to mate them together. Servo wires come in several different configurations, but if you'll always remember this simple rule to get your polarity right, in other words, get the wires hooked up the right wires. Light to light, dark to dark. No matter how the servo is, light to light, dark to dark. Okay? So, in this case, I've got a yellow wire, a red wire, and a black wire. Now, the red wire and the black wire are like your positive, negative in most electronics. The yellow wire, or in some servo, would be a white wire. That's your signal wire. That's your command wire. Now here it is. This has a white wire. So what would you think? I'm going to hook my white wire to my yellow wire. Let me get you a little closer where you can see a little more close up what I'm doing here. Okay. Okay. See these wires here? See the white there? And then I'm going to turn this to where the yellow and that white are going to line up. Now they tight, that fits in there real tight. Okay, so I'm not worried about it. But if it didn't fit in there real tight, it felt kind of loose, I might put a piece of Scotch tape or something to make sure these two connections don't come apart, because then all of a sudden my plane's not going to work right. But see, I've got the white wire lined up with the yellow, light to light. And the black wire is lined up with this brown wire, dark to dark. All right, got to do the other side the same way. Okay, light to light, dark to dark. And that fits there nice and tight too. All right, so all we're going to do at this point is let this little capacitor, or whatever it is, fall down in there. And see how this wing fits in there like a piece of a puzzle there. Line that up there. Now these screws, you could use a Phillips head screwdriver if you wanted to, but they have these easy access thumb things. That way you can just grab them with your thumb or your fingers. And that's lined up. There's a hole right there on both sides. There's two up here and one back here that's going to line up to put this, and that's going to just screw right in. Or at least it should. Sometimes you have to finagle with it, but once you do it a couple of times, it fits. It's sometimes easier to get this back one in first. You'll feel it. That goes all the way down. Okay. Now you should be able to line. Like I say, it's not always perfect. Sometimes it does take a while. Kind of have to finagle it to get that screw, because you're going somewhere blind. You can't see where you're going. All right. That one lined up perfect. And this one's going to be, there's always going to be one that's going to give you some problems. But don't let that fret. Just make sure you don't have any wires hanging out, nothing in the way. Okay. Arg. It's always when you're making a video that things go wrong. Ah, see? When it drops down there like that, you're good. And you'll feel it. Feel it get bite, grab. And if you're unsure, kind of keep an eye around the foam here. When it starts denting in, don't go any further. When it bottoms out and you start seeing the foam dent just a little bit, stop right there. Okay, same thing with this back one right here. And that wing is on there. Alrighty, we're back. Now, we have a completed Aeroscout. She's all put together. All right, but got no juice. Got no power. Okay. I'm going to take the cap off. We're going to get our battery in place. Now, I'm going to put the bind plug in here. This is the same as hitting that button. Okay. As hitting that button. But I'm going to, on the top of the receiver, I'm just going to put this in. We're going to get these things bound together for right now. Let me put some batteries in the transmitter. I got to figure out the commands on the transmitter real quick. All right, we're going to get everything ready to go, ready to bind. Okay, and we'll be right back. All righty, we're back. I figured out this transmitter. Okay, the battery's at 60%. That's good enough. I put my batteries in for the first time. And when you turn this particular, this is what comes with the Aeroscot and the ready to fly. When you turn it on for the first time, the two little green batteries are going to come on. How many batteries are going to come on to show you how much battery life you have. It's on, okay? It's not connected to anything. We're going to turn it back off because we want to bind these two. We want these two items, my transmitter, to talk to the receiver, okay? So I'm going to turn, the procedure for that is you turn your transmitter off, okay? Put your battery, preferably a fully charged battery, and then if you're not going to hold that button down on the receiver, you can use the bind plug extension, which is what I've got here. You put a bind plug in there, and that puts the receiver in bind mode. In other words, if you could see the receiver right now, it would flash yellow. Okay, so we're going to plug this in. Okay, receiver, the battery, it wants to talk to something, but it's got nothing to talk to. I'm going to hold down the bind button on the transmitter and turn it on. See how it's flashing? Up, up, up. Okay. When that goes solid, and that you get that dance there, you now have communication, and they are locked in together. But here's the next step that you do. Pull your bind plug out. And by the way, it doesn't matter how you put the bind plug in. Just put that bind plug in either way. Tuck your bind wire back in there out of your way, because you're not going to be using it again. Just plug it out of the way. Unplug your airplane. Okay? Go ahead and then turn your transmitter off. And it's not necessary to do this right now, but I want you to get in the habit of that order. You will always turn your transmitter on first. Then you will apply power to your aircraft by plugging the battery in. And then you should have, if it's already bound, you'll have communication. And then when you're done flying, you'll unplug the battery first and turn the transmitter off second. Okay? Transmitter always comes on first, then plane. Then unpower plane, and then turn your transmitter off. Okay? Always in that order. Transmitter is now going to be on. See? And it's solid because it already knows to talk to one. It's already bound with an airplane. I'm going to plug my, which is this one, plug my battery in. Okay, we now have communication. So let's go over the controlling. Oh, and by the way, set your battery in such a way to where this little lip here will fit in the front of your Aeroscout. Now I've got that battery too far forward, so let's move it back just a touch to where that battery hatch will now get in there. Just kind of tongue and groove on in there, no problem. All right. Now, before we talk about that, I want to talk about something that's critical to all airplanes, and that is CG. You saw where I put that battery. Okay. On the underside of this wing, there's a little bitty boxes there that say CG. Well, that stands for center of gravity. And if I put my fingers on that and I got that battery in there, okay, look at how that plane is sitting on just the tips of my fingers, and I've got them on those CG marks. Okay? Well, that tells me that my center of gravity is just perfect because look at how that plane is sitting. Nice and level. So that means that when I'm flying along, if my center of gravity, if my plane is balanced right, that if I let go of the sticks, she should fly just straight, just like this. Okay? That's a well-balanced plane when it balances. Now, there's all kinds of scenarios where you would want a plane to be a little more nose heavy. There's other types of scenarios where you want the plane to favor tail heavy, but that depends on the type of plane you're flying. But in this case, a high wing trainer, which is what this is, you want a good neutral center of gravity, nice and level flying, because that's the way you want the plane to fly. All right, so let's talk about what this transmitter tells this aircraft and what it means. Number one, right back here on this back right corner is your throttle cut. Right now I've got it towards me, so if I hit the throttle, that prop doesn't work. But if I put it down, look, my throttle's ready. I could get cut. So I'm going to turn that back off. So now I won't have any throttle. I'm not going to have any throttle going. The motor's not going to be moving. If I hold it down, the B switch in the 0 position, that's safe mode or self-leveling mode. That's beginner mode. That's your first mode, okay? And then if as I get more experience, I can pull the switch to the middle position, and that's intermediate mode. And I have a little more, I can get a little more agility. I can make my maneuvers a little more distinct. I can do more tricks and more craziness, okay? But it still will not allow me to turn the plane upside down. Now, if I go all the way to advanced or pull it all the way up towards me or position 2, I can now turn the plane upside down and do whatever I want to do. And it will, but if I get in trouble, oh crap, what am I doing? I can always hit the bind button and it automatically self-level itself back to that position. It'll hold that for a few seconds so you can kind of clear your thoughts and get back to, pull your head back out of your butt, basically. That's your panic recovery. So that's your 3 flight modes. You're going to want to start in 0 mode or position 0 on your B. That's your self-leveling mode or safe. You can go to B, your second position, or position 1 on channel B, on switch B, and that's your intermediate, a little more freedom. You can do a little more. And then once you get really confident, you grow some cojones, you can then go to advanced or position 2 on B, on switch B. And now you can go upside down and anything you want to do with the Aeroscot. All right. Now, over here, this is rates. In other words, this is how much these control surfaces, how much they're going to move. In the low rate, or it's all the way away from you, I'm going to put in most, they only move so much. Let me make sure of that. Okay, that's the other way around. In the position up or in the highest position, you get the most deflection, or they move the most. If you pull it down, now they don't move quite as much. High rate, low rate. It's just how much high rate. See, look at the elevator. I've got the most movement available right now. Okay, I've got it in the advanced. I've got high rates. Look at the elevator. See how much it's moving? Look at the rudder. See how much it's moving? Now I'm going to pull this position down to low. Okay, and see, they're not moving as much. So the progression would be to start off in position 0, okay, when safe, and get used to that, and fly it in your low rate, and then get used to flying it in your high rate. Then go to your intermediate or position 1 on B, get used to flying the plane in high rate or low rate, and then get to where you can fly the plane in advanced in both high or low, just depending on what you're feeling like doing. So right now, this is high, most advanced, and then high rate. That's where I've got it set right now. That means I got most deflection, the most maneuverability I can get out of this plane. This is the actual limit that this plane will allow, okay? And then if I go to safe and low rate, now this is the least amount of movement the plane will allow. This is where you want to start. So we're going to put in that starting mode, okay? Now, this switch over here, I really don't know what it does. It's probably more if you had flaps or anything, because this is still a generic transmitter. But this is your rates. This is your, to turn your prop on and off, okay? This is your rates, prop on and off. This is your your controls your safe, your different modes, your beginner mode, your intermediate, and your advanced. And then this is your bind button back here. All right, and that's how you can, and that's how we control the Aeroscout. And like I said, with balancing the plane, put your 2200 3S right in there, where you can close your hatch and make sure your CG's right. Okay, if it's right, and because you got them buttons right there, you're able, underneath the wing, you're able to check your CG before each flight. And that's all there is to it, folks. That's all there is to it. Okay, as far as setting her up with this radio. Now, that's the basic Aeroscout. We're going to take it out in the field, hopefully when the weather clears, and we'll get you a flight, and we'll go through all the different demonstrations of taking off. We'll do all 6 things. We're going to take off in safe and low rate, and then land, and then take off in safe and high rate and land. Same thing with intermediate, high rate and low rate, takeoff and landings, and then takeoff and lands in advanced and high rate, low rate. So 6 different modes, so to speak. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for watching. I'm sure there's all kinds of things I've left out. One thing I do want to, before we leave, this plane is already set up. In other words, it's already been trimmed. And what that means is when you put a plane together, you see how this aileron lines up with the rest of the wing? All right. It's trim because I don't have to move, adjust these ailerons to make this wing nice and trim. All right, looking at the back of the rudder, okay? See how the back of the rudder lines up perfectly with the center of the fuselage? If it was out of trim, it would be to one side or the other, okay? The elevator, because it's kind of hard to tell with a full floating stab, most elevators just have a section back here, and then you would look at the back section and make sure it lines up with the front section. But in this case, it's the whole thing. So I'm just going to have to trust that the engineers that they know what they had it set right. So, but anyways, that's just a basic idea of trim. But we'll take it out in the field. We'll fly the Aeroscout as you see it. As a new beginner, we'll go through all 3 levels. And then, or actually, in essence, all 6 modes, so to speak, because using high rate and low rate. And that's pretty much it. It's just a nice little plane. And I do have big plans for this Aeroscout. But for right now, let's treat it like a beginner and have some fun with it. Just like a new person getting into the hobby. This is by far one of the best, if not the best, beginning aircraft to get into, because it gives you the best chance for success. And just remember, folks, have fun with this. If you're not having fun with this hobby, then why do it? All right? All right. God bless y'all. God is good. And this is the Aeroscout. Don't forget, folks, faith, family, and friends, then Aeroscouts. See you later. Bye-bye.